Good day, children. Today in this video, we will see what is main clause, subordinate clause, and how to use this in complex and compound sentences. Let's get into the video. A main clause or an independent clause expresses a complete thought that makes complete sense by itself. That is, a main clause is also called as independent clause. Okay. Now, for example, there were few people on the road. It is an independent sentence. Okay. It is not dependent on any other sentence. It is a complete statement. It's a complete sentence. Okay. There were many few people on the road. Okay. The children are laughing. Okay. The subordinate clause or dependent clause cannot stand on its own, which is incomplete. Okay, what is main clause? Main clause is an independent clause which expresses a complete sense, but a subordinate clause is just opposite to it. Okay, it is dependent clause, cannot stand on its own, which is incomplete. For example, just read the highlighted words in this example. Though it was barely 10 o'clock at night. Is the sentence complete, children? No. Yes. Because I cannot just come to you and just express a sentence like this. Though it was barely 10 o'clock at night. What will you think? Okay, what is that? The sentence is not complete. It doesn't make any sense if I say this. But if I say, there were few people on the road, though it was barely 10 o'clock at night, then the sentence looks complete. Okay? So, after we returned from the movie is dependent clause. What happened after we returned from the movie? It's not complete at all. It doesn't make any sense. But read this sentence. We returned from the movie. Yes, a complete statement. We returned from the movie. It makes a complete sense, which is independent clause. See, subordinate clause has condition that it should start with subordinate conjunction. Whatever, that, while, though, these are subordinate conjunctions. After, all these are subordinate conjunctions. Okay? So what did we see first? We saw what is main clause, which is also called as independent clause, which makes a complete sense. Like there were few people on the road, we returned from the movie, the children are laughing. Okay, for examples. Now, what is subordinate clause? Which is dependent on the main clause, which is very dependent on the main clause, which doesn't stand on its own, which doesn't make a complete sense. Okay, so for example, though it was barely 10 o'clock at night, after we returned from the movie. Okay, so these are examples of subordinate clause, which is also called as dependent clause, which is dependent on the main clause. Okay, now let us see the sentences with one or more clauses. First one, the children are playing, which is independent clause. Ria saw a movie yesterday. Again, an independent clause. We are going on a holiday tomorrow. It's a complete sentence, which is an independent clause. So, these sentences have a single clause with only one finite verb each. The children are playing. Playing is the verb. Saw is the verb again in the second sentence. The third example, we are going. Going is the finite verb here. Okay. So these sentences are called as simple sentences with one independent clause and one finite verb. Okay. Next. Meena came late, but she was allowed to enter the theatre. You have to eat on time or you will be sick. Timothy taught his mother to read and he supported her decision to write. So, these sentences have more than one main clause. more than one independent clause. Now read the first example. Meena came late is a complete sentence. Okay, imagine there is a full stop there. Read the next sentence after but. She was allowed to enter the theatre. Again, a complete sentence. Okay, so these two main clauses are joined using coordinating conjunctions like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. You can remember these as fanboys also. F for, A for and, N for nor, B for but, O for or, Y for yet, and yes for so. Okay, so such sentences are compound sentences. Okay. Now let's see what is complex sentences are. Examples. Sam had left before they reached the park. I could not go because I'm unwell. She opened the door when the bell rang. The policeman broke down the door because it was locked. If you buy one shirt, you get the second one at the half price. Okay. So these sentences have a main clause and a subordinate clause. So what is the main clause here? In the first example, Sam had left. That is your main clause, which is an independent sentence, which is a complete statement. Okay. Next, before they reach the park, which is incomplete. Okay. If you only say this sentence, that is before they reach the park, so that sentence doesn't make any sense. So it is incomplete, which is also called as subordinate clause. So these are joined using subordinating conjunctions like after, although, as, because, before, even though, if, since, that, until, when, where, whether, which, while, and so on. Okay. So such sentences are called as complex sentences. Okay. So now what did we see? The first one is a simple sentence which has only one clause, that is a main clause. The children are playing. Ria saw a movie yesterday. We are going on a holiday tomorrow. Okay. The second one, which is a compound sentence which has two main clauses and joined using coordinating conjunctions like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Okay. So the examples are Meena came late but she was allowed to enter the theatre. You have to eat on time or you will be sick. Timothy taught his mother to read and he supported her decision to write. Okay. The next one is complex sentences. Complex sentences are formed using again two clauses, but one is main clause and one is subordinate clause. So these clauses are joined using subordinating conjunctions. What are the subordinating conjunctions? After, although, as, because, before, even though, if, since, that, until, when, where, whether, which, while. Okay. So example, I could not go because I'm unwell. She opened the door when the bell rang. The policeman broke down the door because it was locked. If you buy one shirt, you get the second one at half price. Okay. One more additional information to this. So, what is noun clause? Which is a dependent clause. Okay, just like subordinate clause. Okay, a dependent clause that functions as a noun, that is noun clause. Whatever Sarah draws is of perfection. Whatever is subordinate conjunction. Sarah is the subject, okay, and draws is the verb. Whatever you want is fine with me. Now the whole clause acting as the subject. Whatever you want is the noun clause because it has a subject, you, and a verb, want. So, it is also a subordinate clause because it does not express a complete thought. whatever you want. Doesn't express a complete thought. Yes? The next one. We agreed that we would meet here exactly 20 years from that date. So, the clause that we would meet here exactly 20 years from that date is a dependent clause that acts as a noun. The whole sentence acts as a noun. So it is a noun clause. Noun clause usually begin with the words like, again, the same thing which we used in subordinating conjunctions. That, what, when, where, how, whether, who, whom, why, and so on. Okay? So a noun clause usually begin with these conjunctions. Okay? Time to recollect. Now pause the video for 1 minute and try to identify these sentences and tell whether it is simple or compound or complex sentences. Okay? Now here are your answers. The first one, Meena loves the museum and often goes there with her friends. There are two main clauses which is joined using a coordinating conjunction and, so it is a compound sentence. I need a holiday and I need it now. Again, it is a compound sentence. The third one, they arrived early so that they could get the best seats. It is a complex sentence because have used the subordinating conjunction that. Okay? Next, I have lived in Chennai all my life, which is a simple sentence because it has only one main clause and one finite verb, lived. So it is a simple sentence. Fifth one, we had to stay back after 3 p.m. as we had music class, which is a complex sentence. Okay? Thank you, children.